Hello everyone, this is Uncle Mike. It is Friday, July the 9th, about 11 o'clock. I'm down here in the basement, and it's going to be a short one, but it's going to be a good one. Down here in the basement, and I think that's fitting because it's kind of creepy down here, and these are some creepy stories. Look around what's going on right now in the world. It seems like we're on the precipice. They always have us on the precipice. But now, it seems like a line is being drawn in the sand. A lot of the stuff which I was talking about this time last year seems to be coming into fruition. So we'll see how things unfold. But it's not just that. If you're paying attention, I think you're going to see there's a lot of other strange things afoot. And I think it's all kind of connected. So I'm going to tell you three stories today, which I am calling suspect as can be. Now, I got two boys. I got two young teenage boys, and that is one of their favorite words. This is sus. That is sus. Short for suspect. It kind of tickles me, to be quite honest. I like the idea that they're questioning everything, but I particularly like the lingo of sus because sounds just like Susquehanna. So when I'm saying something sus, and I'm going to give you three sus stories, what I mean is it's not just suspect, but it's suspect with a little bit of synchromysticism built into it. So without any further ado, let me jump right in here. So, right here, this is our first story. This story came out yesterday, July the 8th is when it came out, and it's about Baron Trump. And it's saying how he's 6'7". This kid's 15 years old, 6'7". The first thing when I saw that, I'm thinking, let me go check out that hand. Do I see a sixth finger? Is that Nephilim I'm looking at? But that's not the point of where I'm going with this, because this goes someplace really good. So Baron Trump is, probably the Trump I'm most intrigued by. And the reason being is the whole Baron Trump novels. And I'm assuming all of you all are familiar with these stories. But nonetheless, what happened was probably about in 2017, it came out that there were two children's books written in the 1890s about this fictitious character named Baron Trump. And so, my personal opinion is, I'm like, what is this? One side of me is like, this is totally astroturf. The only thing we know, the only way this exists is through Wikipedia. Now you could go out and buy some books, but who knows? Maybe they've been written recently, or maybe this is evidence of a Mandela effect. Who knows? But regardless, I have an immense amount of curiosity as it relates to this, and I've always had that in the back of my mind. So when I see this strangeness of 6'7" Baron Trump, I'm immediately interested. So if you go and you look closely at the Wikipedia page, we've got this image. When you blow up that image and you expand upon it, you'll see at the bottom is this caption, and this is, I guess, from one of those books. And what it says is, it is the only authentic portrait of Wilhelm Heinrich Sebastian von Trump. And it is, I'm assuming that this is all done tongue-in-cheek, that's the quality of these books, because I haven't read them. But so it's kind of being silly. It's saying, here's the only picture of this person. And immediately that rang harmonious to a line in this New York Post article where it says, the rarely photographed youngest son of former President Donald Trump. It's talking about Baron Trump, this Baron Trump. And so, there's a connection, because it's the only authentic portrait, the rarely photographed, this idea of this character being very hard to capture, in their image, their likeness, whether that be in portrait form or in photography form. So we see that is where it begins. And so it's telling us, we want to go and really compare these pictures. You probably see it by now, but when you put them side to side, this is the this is the same person. What the fuck is this? Look at this, even down to the tuft of the hair. We've got this tuft right here. You got the eyes in the corner. You've got these heavy eyebrows, and you've got this kind of like, I don't even know how you describe this expression on this large doughy face, but this is the this is the same person. So we're in a period of like, what is going on? So here, this is my first 100% sus story. What is going on with this? One other small thing I do want to point out is, look right here. Look on the shoulder. What is this? What is this character on Baron Trump's shoulder? We could see it here. It looks like a little Buddha on a lotus flower. So there's the first story. You let me know what you think about that one. All sorts of interesting time travel, John Trump, Nikola Tesla elements can be added into the story, but this is what they're putting out there. So that's our first story. So the second one is going to be a little bit more personal. So on June 28th, me and Ross Ben, we recorded this episode 9 of From the 40th Parallel. And you can see I made this thumbnail on the 28th. I made it shortly after doing the recording of our conversation. And so if you haven't seen it, you should definitely go check it out. But I'm going to talk about what I was referring to in that presentation, and I was talking about Queen Esther. I've talked about Queen Esther a bunch of times, and I show the harmony, or the parallel, the resonance with between Queen Esther, who's on the Susquehanna River, and this character from Frozen 2, from Disney's Frozen 2, who is a princess. She's the daughter of a king, and her name is Elsa. And I'm not going to go into the details of how they're connected, but the point is, like, in this video, what I was specifically talking about was Esther and Elsa. And so, you definitely if you're on the East Coast of the United States, and particularly in the Southeast, you're aware that there is currently a named storm. And what is this named storm? It is Elsa. So let's go look at the timeline. So what did I say? We did this recording on June 28th. That's when me and Roz did that. And then on July 1st. So what is that? That is 3 days later. 3 days after the recording is when Tropical Storm Elsa is named. It says right here on July 1st, it was just a tropical depression. And it's not until it becomes a tropical storm in which a storm receives a name. And so 6 hours after the depression was formed is when it intensified into a tropical storm and then was provided the name Elsa. So, story number 2, 100% sus. What's going on with that? All right, now I got one more for you. I got one more good one for you. This one is, this is about the Olympics. So this begins with something a little bit more like, more of the manufactured fuckery, or more obvious manufactured. Who knows? Like, if this is manufactured, this whole sort of thing right here, that is just like nuts on the level of the manufacturing. Or if this is pointing to something else, that is nuts for whatever it's pointing to, right? But this one here, we're going to begin with, like, is a little bit more obvious. So, all of the inconsistencies with time and timing are like subtle psychological mental techniques of getting the masses like always off center, that comes with just the calendar. How we have it is confusing. Every month is a different number, or there's not a consistency with that, and all that sort of stuff. I've gone through that in the past, and also with even just like daylight savings. Like there's no purpose for daylight savings other than to make you discombobulated for the day of it. And so when I recently found this out, I just found this out this past weekend, that the 2020 Tokyo Games, they're taking place this summer, but they're still in 2021, but they're still being called the 2020 Games. And there's a really logical explanation, or they give you a very logical explanation, all the money spent for the branding, and it's we need to stay on these even numbers and all sorts of stuff like that. And yeah, that makes sense, but it is still a bit of this timing, like timeline, date time, calling the 2020 Olympics and holding it in 2021, that's a bit of a mind fuck. So I saw that, and I just kind of made a mental note. That's not the point of this story. That's not the point of the story at all, but this is where the story begins. We also know the significance of the Summer Games, and even more important, we know about the significance of the London Summer Games. That was 2012, because in hindsight we saw all of the dancing doctors, and we saw all of the spike proteins, and so we know that we should be paying attention to these ones. It's been made very clear that it's significant in the opening games, and now we know there's a little bit of something is in play right here. So I found out about this weekend because I was flipping through what sort of news they're showing, and I saw they had the Summer Olympic Game trials, and that's when I realized that it was called the 2020 Games. And shortly after that, I got bored after that, and I went and I looked at Amazon Prime. And so on Amazon Prime, I saw that there was this special. There was this special that was had just come out. I don't spend that much time watching stuff, but I had some time. I couldn't be outside, so I was like, yeah, I'll go and see. I was bored. I was going to go and see what's on the computer box. And so I go and I looked at Amazon Prime after looking at a little bit of the news programming which they put out, and I see that this video is available. And the reason I was interested in it is because David Cross, this is a comedy special which just came out on Amazon Prime. David Cross, back in the late 90s, early 2000s, this guy was I liked his work. I liked his work a lot. He used to make me laugh really, really hard, and I was curious. I'm I want to go and see if I still resonate with this type of humor, where how much have me and David Cross stayed together and or grown apart. And I was going to judge that just by, how hard I laugh or don't laugh at his stuff, And so I go and I turn it on. There was a personal connection for me with this guy, David Cross. And so, turns out that no, my comedy tastes and his comedy stylings no longer fit. I watched maybe about 5 or 10 minutes, but in that 5 or 10 minutes, I saw something, or I heard something very, very strange, and that's what I'm going to read to you. I'm going to read to you from the transcript of what his comedy monologue was. Keep in mind that I'm doing this directly after learning all this stuff about the Tokyo Games. And so this is what this is the transcript of this "Oh, come on" of this Oh Come On comedy special. So I'll just read it verbatim. But before I do get into the actual set, I do first want to address the tragic events that occurred, just to address them, acknowledge them, whatever. There's nothing, obviously, nothing funny about it. The terrorist bombings were awful, and the terrorist bombings that took place at the 2020 Olympics were awful. The loss of life was staggering. So now, this is we're going to break this down for a little bit. There's a lot to unpack with that, as they say. Prior to seeing that was me watching this whole thing about the Tokyo Games and thinking about how the timelines are just being fucked around with, 2020 games happening in 2021. And then immediately after that, going and seeing this comedy special from someone who, it's not like, I'm just like picking some comedy special which I don't have a connection to. I have one which I'm going to see this person for, or watch this comedy special for a very, very specific reason, very, very different from where it brought me. And he talks about the exact same thing, and he's dealing with timeline manipulation. So first thing I want to point out, so you see it was released, it was on 2019. In fact, we could see that the forthcoming 1 hour Oh Come On by David Cross will debut on May 10th, 2019. Obviously, this was written before May 2019. And it says the special, named after Cross's world tour, was recorded in Asheville in North Carolina back in August. So it's saying in 2018 this was recorded. So in 2018, David Cross goes up on stage, and this is his his shtick. And he is talking about 2020, which is 2 years in the future, as if it were in the past, implying that he's already, he's past the 2020 games. So we see on that level, there is or we see that there is another level of this time kind of fuckery. Like, it's no real big deal, like, in the big picture of things. Like, it's just like I'm realizing that they're playing around with the 2020 games and the dates. Like, when is it happening? 2020, 2020, 21. Who's this guy in 2018 talking about it as if it already happened? So all that stuff is going on. So that in itself is really friggin' like, wow, that's weird, particularly when we're looking at all of this other, like, timeline stuff, what's begetting what, who, what is going on here. But we're going to go one level deeper. So there is, what he says though, is there was a terrorist event, like a very tragic one, with a staggering loss of life, which occurred. And so the implications now, there are a lot of them, right? Let's say this is a time traveler, our timeline's trying to be manipulated, like what's going on with that? But then here's where it gets really interesting, because we all know, like, whenever we see that there's a terrorist event or something like that, this is your false flag, or at least that's what everyone's going to think, or the first place where our mind is going to go right away. But the setting, the setting up of what could be the easiest to pull off false flag of all times is in play, because they just said, this just happened also on July 8th. It came out that the Tokyo Olympics will be held without fans. And so if anything that happens, like, they can't pay, the loss of life at least is going to not be what it would be, assuming there is an actual event, because why? They just took away all the fans. But then on the flip side, if we're going to say that this is something which is fake, and we're seeing right about now that there's absolutely no problem, like implying that something that does not exist is very, very real. If something is going to be fake, this is the perfect setup for it, because there's going to be even less people to watch it. And I want to say this one last thing. This is just kind of like top of mind, so I don't have a slide for it right here. If you go back to the Beijing Games, and I think they were probably the ones before the London Games, so that would put it, what, at like 2008. In the Beijing Games, it came out that in the opening sequence, and you go and verify this, go and check, in the what do they call that, the opening ceremony, that there was this unbelievable firework display, and supposedly at the last minute, the organization that put that on did not want to take a chance of it, with the eyes of the world upon it, to see any sort of mistakes. And so they opted to go with CGI. So the fireworks that were presented, this amazing fireworks display, which was presented to the entire world, was, it wasn't there. It wasn't there at all. But where it gets really kind of funny or interesting or telling, however you want to look at it, is that the newscasters from all over the world who were in Beijing, they presented it as if it were real. So they're looking on screens. They can look outside in the sky and see there's no fireworks, but they are commenting the oohs and the ahs that this is, actually happening, when no, it's not. They know it's just CGI, and they're acting as if it were. And this came out, this was part of the story afterwards. There was like a lot of apologies, but saying like it was unethical to do so. But the point I'm trying to make is there is a precedent within the Olympics of just absolute CGI being presented as truth. We'll see if anything happens. Who knows? That's one of that if you want to go and play, be open to the idea of timeline manipulation and time travelers, and that David Cross went back in time to go and tell this story so that he could collapse this particular event from happening, or if even everything that is happening worldwide, or at least one of the motivations was so that this terrorist event of the Tokyo Summer Games does not occur. You don't know, because if nothing happens, you'd be like, oh, they collapsed the timeline. Or if something does happen, you'd be like, wow, is this predictive programming? Was this like time travel? So no matter what, it's going to be a mind fuckery shit show. So because of that, I'm going to go and give the final story here. We're going to give the David Cross 2020 Olympic game false flag terrorist bombings a 100% sus rating. So that, my friends, is our 3 stories for tonight. I hope that was enjoyable and thought-provoking. Just you gotta smile. Something weird is going on, and we gotta start seeing the weirdness. I'm seeing it so much in my personal life right now, and I'm certain a lot of you guys are as well. So feel free to share your comments and any good stories or any sort of thoughts. Go ahead and do that. Also, what is it? It's July 9th. I got a bunch of bills to pay, and my Skymancy book is light. So if any of you had been thinking about getting one of those sessions, now is the time to order one. You go to my website and do so. If you've already had Skymancy 1, now would be a good time to order Skymancy 2. I'm also doing tours, anything like that. So if you're in the central Pennsylvania area, I can be hired as your personal tour guide. All of that can be acquired on the website. So I hope to hear from a few of you guys. And also I want to let you know I'm working on a bigger story. I don't know if you call these stories a bigger presentation. A lot of loose ends right now, so I'm still trying to tie them all together. But hopefully next week I'll have that out for you. Until then, enjoy this time, and keep your eyes open, because it's getting weird out there.